All right, back with another mock draft reaction. This is, as all these are, my live reaction to seeing these picks. This is by, I say it's by a PFF mock draft reaction, but this is, that's a company. They're made up of people. So this is by Dalton Wasserman. So it is his mock draft that we will be going over here. So this is just the most recent one on the website. They have a few, but yeah, let's get into it and see what I think of this one. So first, Cam Ward at first overall. Yep, that checks out. Cleveland Browns at second overall. Could make things easy for number 3. I've said before, let's make things easy for number 3. Get Travis Hunter. Doesn't always work out that way, and I think I saw in the headline that might not be what happens. And yes, they still have them, Dalton still has them going with Shedeur Sanders here. Let's see the logic here. So it's sort of saying these two are only guaranteed for $14 million in 2024. They still could select Sanders with the idea of keeping all 3 for the season and slowly ushering him into the league. Definitely a possibility. I think the reason why I pay more attention to those signings is because it almost makes me feel like, okay, yes, you could do this, but is that what you would want to do? It feels pretty guaranteed that the Titans and the Browns are going to select the players they're going to select. And it doesn't seem like there's going to be anyone who's going to trade up. But what's the point of signing both of them? Why not just sign Wilson or Winston as opposed to both? But ultimately, maybe they just want to be sure that no one is trading up to number 2 and they like Sanders. Not what I would pick, though. The Patriots fans are definitely hoping this is what happens, though, because then they would get Travis Hunter, really good player who, is my number 1 player on my big board, personally. Number 5, Mason Graham. Yep, a lot of people have this to the Jaguars. Number 6, though, okay, so this is another instance of this is not, the conventional pick of Genty is the guy a lot of people are saying. Now, I want to double check, but yes, this is what they think would happen. This is a predicting mock draft. This is not a what they would do mock draft. So, listen, I would not hate McMillan at number 6 to the Raiders whatsoever. I think he's a great player. I do kind of buy into the Genty hype, but okay, if he doesn't get taken, who ends up taking him? I think that's interesting. So, number 7, okay, another deviating from the norm, which, hey, that's fun because we all have our idea of how this could go, but the draft gets weird, and sometimes it stays the way we expect at the top. Sometimes it gets very different. This is definitely different, but again, if the Jets just like Tyler Warren, I know that they could use a tackle, but ultimately, if they just feel like he's the better player, okay, draft the better player. As they bring up, it's not the Jets can't use another tight end. They'll find room for him. Absolutely. So, yeah, I get the logic. Again, maybe not what I would have done, but with the 49ers seeing, wait a second, Membo still on the board. Hey, Panthers, you want an extra draft pick? Let's work something out. I would like this from both perspectives, really. Panthers get an extra draft pick and probably don't need the tackle there anyway. 49ers going to trade up. They get their tackle. Yeah, that makes sense to me. I think if he does fall. Now, I guess the question is, do they need to trade up in this scenario? But I'm trying to remember who the next couple picks are, but that's the question. Well, I guess you maybe would because they have the Saints going with Will Campbell at number 9. Now, again, some people are huge fans of Will Campbell. I'm actually a little colder on him than a lot of other people are. But for the Saints, Sanders is off the board. Maybe they don't like Jackson Dart enough at that point, so they're just going to say, let's just draft a player we think could be best player available. And, I get the logic. Some people have Campbell going 4. If you're getting that kind of player at 9, I'm sure the fan base will be happy about it. Number 10, Genty is now going here. Yeah, again, it worked out very well for Ben Johnson. I will mention, people almost act like Gibbs was the nucleus of Ben Johnson's whole thing. Gibbs is a very good piece. He clearly values running backs, but Ben Johnson had a very successful first year with the Lions before Gibbs got there. So they don't need the elite halfback. I do think the Bears could still look somewhere else, even if Genty is on the board, but let's just be honest. If he's on the board, Ben Johnson values halfbacks enough that this probably will happen. Number 11, so now you have the Panthers who traded back to 11. They're going to get Jalen Walker, which I like a little better at 11. It still just feels early for me, and I still would like them going for more offensive pieces. But remember, McMillan's off the board now as well, so this makes more sense to me than a lot of people picking him at number 8 with Walker, while also, there's receiver, McMillan is on the board. I think a pick like this just makes more sense to me. Moving on to number 12, Jahad Campbell goes to the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, sure, they could use a linebacker. They do bring up that, yeah, defensive coordinator Matt Eberflus is he likes linebackers. He values that. That's a good point, actually. Again, this is what I like about, I feel like PFF mock drafts are maybe some of my favorite because I feel like they think in ways that like I didn't think of, but also totally make sense. This pick totally makes sense. He would not be the first off-ball linebacker they have taken with the number 12th overall pick. They took Micah Parsons with the 12th overall pick back when he was an off-ball linebacker. He ended the season as an edge rusher, of course. I don't know if that'll happen with Campbell, but I think he could be a good off-ball linebacker. Dolphins, Kelvin Banks Jr. Okay, I mean, again, you could definitely use an offensive lineman here. That makes sense. You see a lot of people predicting corner, but I like Banks as a player, so I kind of like this pick. Okay, so Colston Loveland at 14 to the Colts, who, again, Tyler Warren off the board. They want a tight end. I don't know if they desperately need a tight end that much that they would draft Colston Loveland. Like, you can get another tight end if you need another guy in the room at some point. You can get one later in the draft. They don't need to reach on a tight end, but maybe they don't view this as a reach. I do like Loveland a lot as a player, so bit of a reach for me, though, but not a massive one, I would say. Nick Emanuele for the Falcons, who, again, they need defensive help in general, so pretty much any defensive player. I've legitimately seen them get mocked, I think, a defensive player at every position at this point, which is maybe a bit of a concern for where their defense is currently at. So, okay, maybe just take the best defensive player available. I like Jody Barron Moore, who goes one pick later to the Cardinals. Honestly, that's a pretty good scheme fit as well. Yeah, that would be great. I would like that a lot for Arizona if that happens. Number 17, Shamar Stewart. Again, people keep mocking this, and listen, it could happen. I'm not saying it's a horrible prediction. I just don't know if I would like this from the Bengals' perspective. I feel like there's better defensive players that can help them right now, I think. That's just kind of how I view it. But again, I'm not as high on Stewart as other people. Some people view Stewart as a top 10 pick, and then, okay, well, then I guess it's fine to get him at 17. I just don't know what to make of this player. Mikael Williams for the Seahawks, which is interesting. I mean, as was brought up here, they acquired DeMarcus Lawrence, but they could definitely add another edge rusher as well. Again, Seattle has a few needs that they can fill. If they like Mikael Williams, then go ahead and do it. Number 19. So, okay, the Bills are going to trade with the Buccaneers. Listen, the Buccaneers are always willing to make a trade if one presents itself. So they get a second-round pick 62, to go back 11 spots. The Bills get Will Johnson, who the Buccaneers might be interested in. Who knows? But if the Bills decide to do this, hey, I would not hate it at all. And, make sure you do it before the Chiefs, although the Chiefs don't need a corner. But, make sure you do it before some of the other corner-needed teams make something like this happen. I don't hate this. I think this is actually kind of smart. And it's how, the Bills don't always do this, but maybe it's not the worst idea in this situation. I don't know. I think the one reason why I'm a little bit colder on this, though, is I feel like there are other good corners in this draft, although a lot of people do feel like there is a teardrop between Will Johnson and some of the other corners, so maybe there's some logic with that. 20, yeah, Amarian Hampton, again, Sean Payton loves a running game, doesn't value receivers as much as other people do. I still think I'd rather go receiver there, but okay. Malachi Starks to the Steelers. A lot of people are predicting quarterback here, but if we buy into the Aaron Rodgers rumors, it probably won't be a quarterback in that situation. Here's, I guess, the issue is, okay, so the logic behind, this writers is, well, Fitzpatrick and Deshaun Elliott both did not have very good PFF grades last season. The interior coverage unit wasn't great. I don't necessarily disagree, but I just don't know if, I don't know if the Steelers front office is saying we got to get Fitzpatrick and Deshaun Elliott to improve, we got to get better players than them. I think they want to get better on the boundaries and hope that interior kind of fixes itself. That's kind of where I disagree. The Chargers going with Mike Green. That's interesting. It makes sense. Again, I don't think the Chargers are going to kind of similar to Denver. Well, I think that receiver is probably the best move there in a vacuum. I don't think they're going to reach on a receiver just to get a receiver. If they like a player at a different position, they might do that, and Mike Green might be that guy. I can totally see the logic. Moving on to number 23, the Packers, Donovan Izukwu, who, again, I think it's interesting, as this writer brings up, the Packers posted the 5th lowest PFF pass rush grade in the NFL last season. I didn't realize it was that low. Yeah, I think that's a good argument. Go ahead and get Donovan Ezeuruku, try to help out there. The Seahawks now, so the Seahawks trade with the Vikings. So I'm trying to figure this out. Yes, so the Seahawks drafted earlier. I was trying to think, wait, but isn't their pick earlier? Yes, so they get pick 18. They trade up again with Minnesota. Okay, this makes sense because Seattle has a lot of extra draft picks, and the Vikings don't really have any draft picks. I guess the question is, does Seattle need to trade up again to get someone like Gray Zabel? Is it worth doing that then instead of just maybe, drafting a offensive lineman here? But if they want an edge and an offensive lineman, this might be how they decide to do it. I can see it. I definitely think that those two teams coming together for a trade makes sense. But ultimately, it's just going to come down to how much does Seattle value those two prospects to try and get 2 first-round picks right here, and that will remain to be seen. But yeah, Vikings definitely would be willing to. They like to move around in the draft. That's kind of what they do. 25th, wow. So the Texans do not go offensive line, and I know some of these offensive linemen are off the board. They aren't all off the board, though. I would think they would go offensive line here, but ultimately, maybe they just feel like, we want to be great at throwing the ball down the field. I don't know. I mean, they're saying, major questions behind Nico Collins and Christian Kirk. Well, I mean, you still have Tank Dell, who I know is coming off an injury, and I don't know what the update is on if he'll even start next year, but you still do have him on the roster, right? Yeah, I mean, okay, getting Matthew Golden would help. I just don't know if this is what they're going to do. I think there is logic behind if a great player falls, draft the great player instead of the position of need. I just don't think that's what they're going to do. But I've been wrong before. We'll see. So 28. So now we have the Bears trading with the Rams. The Rams get back into the business of not picking in the first round, which, hey, the Rams do love to trade down. And the Bears get Kenneth Grant. So they get Genty earlier, and now they improved their defensive line with this pick. That's kind of the logic there. Again, I can see some logic here. I do think he would help out. They clearly want to get better in the trenches. Adding another interior guy. I know they probably need an edge more than an interior guy, but, you'll find the snaps for someone like Kenneth Grant. So I get it. Now moving on to number 27, Tyler Booker goes to the Ravens. They could use a guard, kind of an underrated issue they have, and I do think Booker, a lot of people are speculating he could go around here, so that's not a horrible take. Pretty much most people are picking them to get an edge rusher here, but if they don't love the edge rushers, okay, I could see it. Although I think they just take James Pierce Jr., who goes one pick later, who is he'd be a great pick for the Lions. I think he's a great player, really underrated player. Again, I know that there's some character concerns or whatever, but I don't know. I just think that's a pick that would work. Okay, another trade here. This makes sense. The Washington Commanders trading back a bit, and a lot of people have them going corner here, but they can get a corner a little bit later. If the Titans feel like they want a receiver now, at this point they're trading with what they're trading. Who are the Buccaneers on our next pick? Are the Buccaneers really a team you need to trade up ahead of to get a receiver? There's a couple other teams, obviously, because it's 35 to 29, but do you really need to jump to get a receiver? But I don't know. Maybe they like Luther Burden enough, and they feel like someone else will get the receiver that they decide to do it. I do think adding a receiver for Cam Ward is smart. I think making the offensive situation as good as it can be is smart, so I do get the logic there. Number 30, Tampa Bay, who, again, trades back and still gets a corner in Trey Amos, who, again, on paper, well, you have Zion McCollum, who was very good last year and was healthy last year. Jamel Dean, who was very good last year, kept getting banged up, though. But ultimately, you don't want to go into the season with just 2 boundary corners. And having someone like Trey Amos, who can also work on the outside if that's what you want him to do, you have more secondary depth. Depth is important. As a Tampa Bay fan, I'd be thrilled with this development, getting an extra second-round pick. Granted, one of the last picks of the second round, but still an extra second-round pick, and still getting a good corner. I'd be very much in favor of it. Then the Chiefs go for Walter Nolan. Again, I don't think this is crazy. I know a lot of people are saying, well, they need tackle. But if you don't love one of the tackles available, don't reach. Just get a good player, right? And they don't need tackle, right? You have they signed a guy who could hopefully play for them. I think the guard situation is a question mark, but I think they feel there's been reports of my podcast co-host thinks that are just untrue. I think there's maybe some validity to them of Sumatea potentially being a guard. It's at least an option they have there. Yes, they would like another offensive lineman in a vacuum, but if you're getting a worse player, well, maybe just get the better player, right? Get Walter Nolan, who would be great for them and would be really good next to Chris Jones. And then finally, Derek Harmon, who, again, I feel like the hill I keep dying on is I don't think the Eagles they don't need a Milton Williams replacement. They have a deep interior defensive line room that they don't need to go there, but ultimately Harmon would be able to fill that role and would get some snaps there. So it's something the Eagles could do. But yeah, ultimately, those are my thoughts on all of this. Very interesting mock draft. I enjoyed this. A lot of, thought-provoking things to talk about. Definitely an interesting one. So yeah, those are my thoughts on all of this. What are yours? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.